Hey out there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, and happy Shochu'sday from both of us here in the lab. To all of you out there all around the world, it's Wednesday morning here, and I wouldn't say bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, but we are ready to go get it. Steven, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Uh, Back in Fukuoka, glad to be home. A little bit of a whirlwind weekend, and
Yeah,
yeah,
and there he is right there.
yeah,
Mark Carlson says, best Hanami, no ill effects. Mark is, of course, referring to, and please do share what you have in your glasses if you're sipping on anything. But we did have the Japan distilled Maction Planet Hanami Extravaganza last Sunday, so a few days ago. And if you live in Tokyo, you know that Sunday was not a beautiful day. It was not blue skies and butterflies. It was pretty pretty steady rain the most of the day until the evening when everybody would have gone home anyway. So our hanami didn't actually involve any flowers really, or not, at least not real ones. We had to move
there's
the party
there's some
indoors. Yeah, we
plastic
we,
flowers.
we decorated with plastic flowers, and not obviously not the best, but it actually turned out to be pretty fun. And Stephen, you were there. How did you find it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really nice compromise. It was nice having the bar set up where people could come and get their drinks and talk to you and Mac and Sam from Baird Beer. It seemed, and while there were chairs available, nobody really sat down. Everybody just kind of treated it as a standing sort of thing. And I guess a few people found chairs in corners and that sort of thing to take a rest. But it was generally just good. You could, I saw a lot of old friends. I saw, met new people, and it was really really nice to be able to socialize again in a setting
Mm,
like that. Like it's so rare now that we have it essentially turned into almost like a house party, right?
yeah.
That's in some ways what it reminded me of, and it was just really really fun to catch up with everybody and um, you know yeah, I thought it made the best of a bad situation. Obviously it would have been amazing if it was a beautiful sunny day under the cherry
Yeah.
blossoms and you know that sort of thing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I thought it was, hopefully next year we'll get better weather um but this will be memorable, right? Our first
Yeah.
hanami back
The first time
after the
ever
pandemic ended up
indoors.
not being a hanami.
Yep. I mean, we
So
we did have one planned for 2020 and 2021 and 2022, and all three of those got squished by
yep.
the pandemic. So we were determined to get this one to go forward. Mac and I were out in the park at 6 a.m. looking up at the sky and just asking for some little break in the weather. But the longer we stayed, the heavier the rain got. And we looked at the forecast, and when it was getting heavy, they were predicting 1 millimeter of rain per hour. And then by the time everyone got there, uh, it was up to was going to arrive at 11. It was going to be at something. No, it was going to be at 2 mil, and then at around lunchtime it was going to be at 3 millimeters per hour. So we're like, yeah, no, let's cut our losses. So we went to the Tokyo Comedy Bar, which is not very far from Shibuya Station, and hosts some pretty good acts, just judging by the posters on the walls. So worth your time. They've got a good list of craft beer there. Normally, Baird is a big part of it, and go have a couple of laughs and enjoy the nice clean toilets that are not very far away. As opposed to being out in the park. That was one thing I'm sure
True.
that people didn't appreciate quite as much as they would have. Those lines at the porta potties out in the park can get pretty monumental, pretty epic, especially on the ladies' dunnies. So yeah, I think it worked out. Anyway, that's what Mark is referring to, and thank you, Mark, for traveling so far from Colorado to come and hang out with us. It is very much appreciated. It was good to see you again, and but that I think we should talk next about some upcoming events. I know of one. I don't know if you're aware of any, Stephen.
Why don't you get started and I'll give it a thought.
Keep jogging your brain. So the this what was an annual retreat to Amakusa is happening on April 2nd. I was just alerted
Okay. Oh, wow.
yesterday, and that is an event that I've been. I think Stephen, you've been to it once. I've been to it once before. It is where the distillery, the hometown distillery, Amakusa Shuzo, kind of teams up with the local community, and they host a multifaceted kind of afternoon up on the hill overlooking their part of little inlet or part of the bay. I don't know if it's a bay really, but it's the ocean. It's kind of open water, and there's drinking. There's mochi ball throwing. There is access to somewhat limited stocks of shochu that you wouldn't really normally have easy access to that you can purchase. There are trips up the hill to the new cafe, and there are boat trips, or there were in the past, and a bunch of things in between. There's also sometimes an evening get together at the town hall, but that's April 2nd. The way it used to work, and I don't know how it works these days, anyone is free to go, but you should know that you need to plan your way out of there or plan your way to stay. And that's not really easy to do because it is a little bit remote. I take that back. It's a lot remote, and you need to have a plan. So that's happening on April 2nd, and it's good to see that these things are coming back to life.
Yeah, I've actually never been to that.
Oh, you haven't been? You've been to the distillery, just never to the festival.
Yeah.
I see. Gotcha.
That's right. Yep. And I definitely would like to join, but I think that's a little bit short notice for me. So hopefully they're.
Yeah, I've got too much to do to be able
advertising.
to make it this year. So
Yeah, sure.
I'm holding off, but I'm certainly tempted to go do that. I don't know what else is.
They do it
I'm
once
sure
a
there's
year?
other things happening. Sorry?
They do that once a year.
They used to. It used to be every spring.
Okay.
But I don't.
Well, maybe we can go
it's
next
been
year.
off for a while. Maybe. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I don't really have much. We did. I guess the thing that we should touch base on is we did get cocktail submissions, and we will be reviewing those. I think.
Oh yeah.
Due to some travel logistics, it may end up being me at Matt Alt, and Pablo Pineda, who end up doing the judging of the competition. But we will try to get that knocked out relatively soon, and announce our winners and make sure that we get our prizes out. We got some really, really cool submissions. I think we got about a dozen, maybe 15 to 20. I didn't count them all up, but I have them all safely registered, and I will we'll get those ingredients together and find a bar and do a little side-by-side tasting of what we consider the top 5 based on the ingredients, and then we'll pick the winner.
While we're talking about cocktails, I wanted to I don't know if you saw this tweet from Garrett Oliver maybe a little over an hour ago, but I'm gonna show it on my screen right now because he just put together.
I replied because I actually tried to make a sweet potato shochu martini last night. And,
okay.
I don't think I got it cold enough. It was still pretty tasty, but I didn't have that bracing chill.
So we've got what he's calling an awamorini masakano. It's 5 parts chuko yoka koji. One of Honkaku Spirit's newer brands, and it's our only awamori. Then 1 part Masakan Winery Il Vermouth di Friulano, and 1 good dash of Fees Brothers Orange Bitters. Stir it, as Steven says very well, to make sure you get the temperature right. You need to peel, and you serve it up. And he I quote, "Come to scoff, remain to pray. Trust me, I feel better than you do," which is pretty epic and pretty standard. Garrett Oliver, if you've ever had the good fortune to drink with him,
Garrett's a good follow. To answer Chris Caldwell's question, that's Amakusa in Kyushu, in Kumamoto.
It's down on that little wing.
Yeah, little string of islands off the western coast of Kumamoto Prefecture between Nagasaki and Kumamoto. It's not far at all from Kagoshima. Yeah, it does stretch down there. And
that's how I've always gone. Is actually the ferry from Kagoshima across to to
Okay.
Amakusa. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever gone the long way down.
Yeah, I've only driven over.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, but no, it's yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I've been wanting to do that event, but like I said, it's a little bit short notice for this weekend. But cool, yeah.
All right.
But besides the hinami, I'm
Mm-hmm.
having trouble with pronunciation this morning. Um, the the other part of our journey was to go visit the Mitosaya Botanical Distillery in Chiba Prefecture. And we had gotten to know them a little bit. We did the research for our Eau de Vie episode on the podcast, but then we got to know the owner, Eguchi san, when he found out about us. That was actually episode 30, was our Eau de Vie episode. If you want
Oh,
to go
was
back and
it?
give that a
Okay.
listen. Yeah, there's only three distilleries making eau de vie in Japan to any great degree. And when I say to any great degree, I mean virtually at all, other than like
At all. Yeah.
one-off products.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been to Sata Soji, which is a big sweet potato shochu maker in Kagoshima, who's invested in new equipment, well, new used equipment to make. They imported some stills from Europe, some vintage stills to make eau de
Yeah.
vie. They've made that a big part of their business with the Akayane brands, and they're pretty interesting, but they're made at scale relative to Mitosaya and Tatsumi, which are both
Yeah.
micro distilleries in the truest sense of micro distillery. And I think
Yeah.
you and I were both shocked at the scale of production. It
It's
was
amazing.
almost like a home brewer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was
It was
tiny.
remarkable. And I
Yeah,
do have some. The videos rendered, so we'll be able to watch those too. But
Okay, great.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first sign was, when they told us that they had 150 liters still. So that's how much liquid goes into this still, and your yield is less than that, right?
A lot less.
And yeah, so they're getting, I think, 12 to 15 liters of distillate per run, which is nothing. They weren't even filling an 18-liter demijohn with one run, right? They're getting it about half to a little over half full, I think.
And Garrett's like smaller
So
than
yes,
Jufuku, and the answer is
much,
way smaller.
much
Way,
smaller.
way smaller. Yeah.
Now, much larger footprint as far as
Th-
the property, but
Yeah.
that's because it's the former medicinal botanical garden of Chiba Prefecture that had been supported by the government until the bubble popped, and then it turned over into private hands, and now they've taken the buildings, the outbuildings in the gardens, and turned those into the distillery, a tasting room, the office, which actually also encompasses a tiny little store, and the residence of the owner. Like the family lives upstairs from the office on the property,
Yeah.
and it was an absolutely unexpectedly wonderful experience
Yeah.
to visit.
Yeah. It was great because they gave us a map when we first got there. And I'm like, oh, cool,
Yep.
I have a map. But then he starts to walk you all around the grounds. And there's a marsh with, marsh vegetation. And then there's cherry trees in full bloom and other trees in full bloom. And these are pear trees. And, those are, mugwort plants. And then there's an area with that used to be poisonous plants, but they had like a section for poisonous plants that they don't have anymore, he said. But it was pretty remarkable. And then there's a sauna that he built out of basically tubing and plastic, because he used to make his own malt. He used to malt his own grains, and he's like, well, this place gets hot, let's turn it into a sauna. So it was pretty funny. And then the distillery itself is just this repurposed, pretty old building that is really, really elegantly redone to suit their very small scale needs. And then they have the office in another building, and it's a really interesting. Wouldn't be possible in a larger set, like in or near a city. It's way the hell out there in Chiba. Like
Right.
It is out there. The only thing indicating civilization nearby is a baseball diamond. and that's about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you got to drive a while before you get anywhere. But
that's
yeah,
a-
why
yeah.
don't I share a little bit here, because
Sure,
I have some
sure.
stuff that
Yeah.
might be fun to look at. This will
Yeah,
give
I
you
think
a sense of what we experienced.
it fits so well the unscalable business article which we talked about a week or two ago that Tom Downey had written for the Wall Street Journal magazine, where
Sure.
this is just like they can't do more than what they're doing, and if they wanted to scale, the investment would be so huge. They do have the land for it, but
Yeah.
they'd be kind of disturbing what is a very, very unique environment. And yeah, this is actually the tasting room, right? Which actually
It's a
is
greenhouse,
greenhouse. Yeah. In a little bit of disuse since the winter is just ending. They haven't been doing any events since last year, so it needs to get cleaned up a little because the foliage inside has browned over and the leaves have started to drop onto the tables, and because
Yep.
it's a living greenhouse, right? So they'll
Yeah.
get all those plants healthy again in the spring, and then yeah, that'll be the tasting room again. It's a
Yep.
that's yeah, there we
We
are.
went on walkabout behind, that's Eguchi-san and leading the way, and we're walking
Yeah,
through
yeah.
one of the many gardens, just kind of snapping off flowers and cracking leaves and
Yeah.
smelling and tasting, and
Yeah. It,
this is exactly what they do. This is where they get the botanicals and the various ingredients for many of their products, and they're tinkerers. They just they go with what's in season, and then they make an eau de vie out of it. It's pretty remarkable.
Yep, yep. And that's what was so unique, because we're used to shochu distillers or whiskey distillers or gin distillers where, they're figuring out their recipe, they're ordering their ingredients in bulk, and they're making standard products. Here, he's walking around smelling, like Christopher said, smelling the flowers, smelling, breaking off leaves and cracking the leaves open and extract the oils and get a sense of what those aromas are, and thinking about how he can use those in combination with other things to make beautiful eau de vie. And it's
Yeah.
just such a different way of thinking. And
Yep.
it was
It
absolutely
really is.
fascinating. Yeah.
Then this was a local beekeeper who comes onto the property to tend the hives. So Eguchi-san saw him, walked straight up to him. I'm like, he's the only one here who's wearing armor. So we dutifully followed, and the bees were very docile, and we didn't have any issues. But we were standing right next to him as he was working on this hive, and of course these bees are central to everything that's happening up here on the hill. So there's a bit of a reverence paid to them, and of course here's some of the bees' targets. There was a lot that was in bloom. You can see in the background there's a couple of cherry trees that are maybe just past full bloom. The green leaves are starting to peak a little bit, but this was a beautiful row of bushes along one of I think this was a driveway, but really, really remarkable space. I mentioned the sauna before, which was handmade, and apparently Eguchi-san also put together this cottage, which I think he said he used to actually stay here before they moved into the residence that they've created above the office space in the distillery. And it's a one-room hut. You can see the outdoor boards are dutifully charred so that they withstand differences in temperature, moisture, all of that sort of stuff. Keep the weather out and keep the cool or warmer air in, whatever the case may be. And you can see the moss on top, but it really is just it's a very humble place that
Very rustic.
Apparently
little
they've
cottage.
had, apparently they've had some apprentices, or some interns as he called them, come and stay with them and learn how to make spirits. Most recently, I think he said it was somebody from Israel had stayed
That's
with
right.
them for 3 months, and she spent the entire time living out of this cottage. And during the winter, I was like, wow, she must have burnt a lot of firewood. And he's like, oh yes, you go through a lot of firewood because it's not, these big windows on either side, they're not particularly great insulation. But it really is, I think what we're trying to get across with this imagery is just showing how close to nature it is, really, the distillery and the people who operate it, and how nature affects everything that they do. This is another one of their greenhouses, and you can see that they've set up this U-shaped dinner table that apparently that you can come in and do events here, which sounds pretty amazing to me if you can get all the way out there, which takes some doing.
Yep.
But just, this looks like a lot of fun. I could see some pretty amazing spirits dinners done here. Yeah, and while I don't know how this is going to show on your computer, and I don't think you can hear it. Maybe Stephen, you can describe what's going on here. We followed this guy over when he was doing his job.
Yeah, so this is actually how they remove the sake lees, or the eau de vie lees, I guess, from the still. They empty it into the big blue tub, then they wheel it out to their composting bin, and then the young man is the other. There are only two full-time employees at the distillery, and it's Eguchi-san who's in the foreground, and then his distillery assistant there in the background, who's emptying by bucket the lees, and they're mixing it with rice bran, and then that'll be used as fertilizer for the plants. So it really is this this no waste system that they're using. And then there are free range chickens on the property that eat a lot of this stuff too, and then also give them eggs for the family. There's also a distillery cat and a distillery dog. Yeah, no worries.
Yep, sure.
So it's
just very circular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those like we said, that's half of the lees from one of the runs of the still. But they have, I don't know if Christopher will show a picture of it or not, but there's a 3,000 liter fermentation tank. I don't know how often they use it, but they have one. They would have to distill that 2 times a day for 10 days to empty it if they actually had a 3,000 liter fermentation.
I do have a picture. I didn't put it in this deck, but man, it's remarkable. I will show you the still next.
Yep.
Here it is. They're cleaning it out after the run. He emptied it out. He took all the lees out. He made 2 trips out to the back of the property to dump it, and he just kind of puts it on this little dolly and right through the mud and everything, and dumps it out by hand twice a day. And that little still, of course, you can see there's a few different places at the top. There's a few levers to close plates, open plates to different degrees, and affect the distillate or the vapors passing through and what they collect in the line arm, and what becomes the spirit.
Yeah, so just to set context for people, that is a column still. It's a very tiny, adorable, one of the shortest column stills I've ever seen, but it's not a pot. That is a column, and it's they run it once, but of course it's redistilling, right? That's the way that the columns work. Is you hit the plate, you cool down, then you hit the plate, you turn it, the liquid drops on the plate, turns back into vapor again, and so you're redistilling the liquid. But from that still, they're getting, like I said earlier, from the 150 liters of fermentation, they're getting 10 to 15 liters of spirit.
Yeah.
So,
and this is one of the biggest fermentations we saw. This is the gentleman who was dumping the buckets earlier, and he's opened up this sweet potato fermentation that we, obviously, I think he wanted us to see it just because he knows that we're shochu guys. But there's no koji involved in these fermentations. Yep. And those are 1,000-liter totes. I think this is the biggest one, active fermentation that they had in terms of volume. Most of the fermentations were in much smaller buckets and other
like
types
drums,
of containers
basically.
like this. Yeah, I think this is a blood orange fermentation.
This is a maceration, right?
Yeah,
I think this was So those are sitting in spirits, this is the interesting thing with them. They're a distillery, but they don't only make distilled spirits or eau de vie. They also make liqueurs of all kinds because they don't want to waste the product. So they make a spirit from blood orange, and then they use the blood orange peels because they're only going to use the fruit, the flesh of the fruit in the fermentation to make the spirit, and then they'll use the skins to make liqueurs with blood orange peel.
And,
right,
and then sometimes, depending on the fruit or the vegetable used, they'll take the meat of that fruit and they'll make a wine out of it, and then they'll blend that in and distill it, and they're very they
Yeah.
keep going with it until they find something that they like, and they're very
Yeah.
I think you've figured out that they're incredibly creative. Here's their aging room. This is the size of
Yeah.
those distillations, Garrett. If you want to see those demijohns, they do have some
Yeah.
barrels of stuff sleeping, but I'm gonna show that again.
Yeah, but those each of those glass, so you can see that the fill lines are a little bit different, and they probably get different yields from different fermentations depending on how high alcohol and where they do their cuts.
Yep.
But you can see they don't even fill in eight. Those are 18-liter demijohns. Those are the standard ito in Japanese sake production. They don't even fill one of those with a run.
Isn't
of the
that
still.
crazy? It's amazing. And you look
Yeah.
at the tags on the neck, and they're all sorts of different types of
Yep.
Eau de Vie.
Yep. Yep.
And then
And they'll
not shown in this video, but just if I had kept panning to the right, I would have come to the heads and tails library,
Yep.
where they
Yep.
keep in larger buckets or what are they? They're containers. They keep the tails, and they sometimes
Yep.
choose to throw those back into a distillation. And then in smaller jars, they keep the heads all very carefully labeled, and sometimes they throw those back into the distillation. So it's pretty fun to look at, pretty fun to visit.
Yeah.
Very interesting to listen to him talk about it.
Yeah, and it really, I think what was so exciting for me personally was he has no handcuffs. He just makes whatever he wants. He's not worried about scalability. He's not worried about paying back investors. He's not worried about any of that stuff that drives business decisions so often. So he's just trying to make beautiful spirits and beautiful liqueurs, things that people are going to respond to, and just has a lot of fun with it. You can see that there's just a joy to the process for them, and that was just
Yeah.
really, really unique experience. And I did bring back a few little samples here. They're not samples;
Yeah.
they're actually these are for sale in their little store. But these are 100 ml bottles. Their standard fill sizes are 500s. Every single box is signed by Eguchi-san. When you buy the larger size, the 500 ml format. This one here is actually made with a German variety of pear grown in Niigata at the Abe orchard. Like they work once they decide what they're going to make, they don't have enough vegetables or botanicals or anything from the actual garden where the distillery is based, but they can do test runs on those ingredients, and then they go out and they find farmers to work with to source the ingredients to make their distillates. But then they often will put the farmer's name or the name of the farm right on the package. And you can't see this very well, but this is I guess this
Yeah. I didn't get that one.
something. Yeah, this is a pear,
Monsieur Lectier.
basically a pear brandy, unaged pear brandy, right? It's clear. There's one here that's this is actually peanuts. This is a peanut spirit, but I think it's actually there's a maceration because there's little bits, you can't see it, sorry, but there's little bits of grit in the in the bottom there. You can kind of see it. So there's it's got a little color to it, and I think that's from the peanuts sitting in the spirit. And it says hand dug roasted local nuts.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
and then they did have a kasatori, but they can't call it a shochu because again this is a kasatori, so sake leaves from a local sake brewery. And then it's using Tsurukame Farm organic rice. All of that information is on the package, and it's just, and again, it's because it's not using a column. It's not shochu, right? Because it's using a column, it's not shochu. Here's one made with all kinds of roots,
Right.
and you can see the turmeric root is giving it all that color. So that's not aged in wood. That's just the turmeric that was macerated in the spirit before it was bottled. And then the one that I think is I'm not sure how good it's going to be, but was so fun is yuzu kosho. So yuzu citrus and kosho black pepper,
didn't
which is
grab that
a
one.
condiment. It's like one of our favorite condiments here in Japan, and he made a spirit called yuzu kosho with chili and yuzu peel condiment by Madame Yuzu. And these are batch numbered and yeared. So you can see this is batch 87, 2021. And he just has, the little, most of what they make, it's sold to liquor stores or restaurants or bars that have gotten interested in what they're doing. Or you can actually order on their website as well, but things sell out very quickly.
You can, Website?
And
Nah.
then,
I check all the
but their
time.
website,
It's just
yeah,
sold out all the time.
sold out, sold out,
Yeah.
sold out. But
Yep.
they still have thing. You go into their little corner, their sales corner in the office where they're doing the
Yeah.
packing and shipping and everything, and they have about 6, 8, 10 bottles of different ones. And Christopher and I were like kids in a candy store.
Oh man, we dropped some coin there, didn't we? They
Yep,
were.
yep, yep.
I was like, how do you say take my money in Japanese? Basically, I was shouting that. I
Yeah,
brought one back with me to Japan or to Okinawa, which I think was the Sakura Maro. Remember this
yeah,
one?
yeah,
This
yeah.
is and it's
I got the
labeled.
500 of that that's
I did
coming.
too.
They're
Yeah,
gonna ship to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Whole circle of sakura cherry in a bottle. Now, this is obviously related to cherry blossoms. I don't remember the entire story. I'll need to ask Eguchi to tell me again. But the one thing that, of course, stands out is that in this product, they tried to. It's the ethos of Mitosaya, and how everything is circular and it comes back to the land. They we're looking at these cherry trees and like, look at all these caterpillars. How do we, I mean, they're part of the story too. So they didn't like, there's no caterpillars in here. They went one step further. They covered the ground around this tree with blue tarp and they collected the caterpillar poop. And then they collected all that dried poop and they made a tea out of this dried poop, which smells like cherry blossoms.
yep,
And then they use that in the blend before distilling and Sakura Maro. So this was just
yep.
fascinating, and I tried it, and it's very complex. It's
Yeah,
not poopy at all, but
I was
it was.
I was driving, so I did not get to try anything, but I did pick up several things, including that. Other thing that I grabbed actually is cocktail cherries. I've had a hell of a time finding like proper cocktail cherries in Japan, but these are actually Japanese sakurambo cherries from looks like Yamanashi Prefecture that are proper cocktail cherries. So now when I make my cocktails, I've
Very
got my
cool.
cherries from
Very, very
Mitosaya.
cool.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing place, and I think Garrett Ryan asked when are we going. I highly suspect that there will be perhaps even annual Japan distilled events at the distillery, whether it's a dinner or a tasting or a field trip or something. Like I want to spend time there
Here's where you
for
can
sure.
follow what they're up to. You
Yep.
can see they are in pretty high demand. Lovely, lovely,
Yep.
lovely people too. I just want to
Yep.
say this third picture over is related to the Noma pop up
Oh
in
yeah,
Kyoto.
that's
They
right.
are in very nice places.
Sakura Amaro that Christopher held up. Amaro, sorry, the Sakura Amaro was actually served or is being served at Noma's pop up.
There you
That
go.
and that label
Don't
right
need
there,
much more than
Christopher.
that.
The very
Oh,
first
the olive one.
picture.
This one.
That's the label for the new olive distillate, which you tried. I didn't try, but I did buy a bottle. I committed to a full size of that because I'm just fascinated by the idea.
Yeah. So as you can tell, we were impressed. We were inspired.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a really
for
good
sure.
visit. Can't wait to go back. It was definitely a learning experience for both of us, and just fascinating. Just really, really interesting what he's doing, and an even bigger fan now that we have seen what the scale is, and that there really isn't. They really can't do anymore. They're doing as much as they
Yeah,
can, really.
yeah, yeah,
So running this
yeah.
still twice a day. It's 6 hour runs, so
Yeah.
there's not
Takes a
much more
while.
they can do.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I definitely think it's worth the trip. I think if we go again, we'll be staying nearby rather than trying to drive out from Tokyo and drive back in one day or
I
take
think
the train.
that's the way it works. You
Yeah,
have to
so
stay out there or stay
yeah, and
somewhere
they
adjacent.
have like volunteer days where people come out and help, maintain the gardens or do harvesting, with local
Farming
farms
Friday
for
or something like
ingredients.
that.
Yeah, Farming Friday. Yeah, there's a lot of things like that we can get involved in, and so I think maybe this becomes part of our, just like we've got the Sakura festival, right? Got our Hanami.
Uh-huh.
Maybe, the day before the Hanami or something is a trip out there or something. We'll figure it. But it doesn't have to be the same time of year, even. It can be in
Yeah,
the
sure.
fall.
Yep.
But
For harvest.
yeah,
I
sure.
think Garrett Yeah, we'll have to drag him up from down south. Yeah, good call,
Yeah.
Garrett. Just because trying to be cognizant of time, I'm going to switch us over to our last one. But anyways, yeah, Mitosaya, give him a follow on Instagram. Lovely, lovely people.
Yep.
I,
Yep.
I hope we get to
For
spend
sure.
a lot more time talking with them.
Yep.
But yeah, newly opened time, if I may be so bold.
You may. I just need to think
I've got one right behind me because I just
Do you?
opened it
Why don't
last
you-
night.
Why don't
Yeah,
you start?
Jikabi Seifuku. I got another 360 ml bottle of Awamori. This is Seifuku, Seifuku. One of the larger, I would probably put that, they're definitely top 10 in terms of production volume in Okinawa. And they're out on Ishigaki Island. They're one of the big ones that I haven't visited yet. But they do a lot of good stuff. They also have an umeshu and a yuzushu that's quite popular if you can find it. This one, standard 30% ABV, 60 proof, as is so common, and quite nice. I had a couple sips of it last night. I'll need to get into it a bit more this evening.
Nice. Yeah. This is a fun one. This is actually Craftsman Tada, which
Okay.
is here in Fukuoka. But this, during the pandemic, the shochu makers were given a respite on the 45% alcohol limit in order to make hand sanitizer. And something I've learned is the reason you don't drink hand sanitizer is because there are chemicals put into it to taste better and actually will make you sick. This is how you keep people alcoholics from buying hand sanitizer and drinking it. The U.S. government's been doing this for a long, long time. I think this started during Prohibition, when you needed alcohol available commercially for cleaning purposes, like as a solvent, but you didn't want people drinking it. Then you would put essentially poisons or toxins into it that would keep people from drinking it. The shochu makers were not given that restriction. You and I have been to restaurants and distilleries where they have the little spray thing, and you get on your hands and you're like, oh wait, that smells like sweet potato shochu, or that smells like awamori.
That smells like Awamori, yeah.
So what Tada-san did, he's the toji at Kanpai. He actually realized that his overproof is really, really good. So he's actually turned it into a commercial brand, and he bottles this as spirits at 66% alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So it's multiple pot distilled, 66%, no longer honkaku shochu, right? It's now a spirit, but it's an unclassified spirit. And this is a 2020 bottling. So this is his, I guess he just turned his leftover hand sanitizer into commercial product.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it is so smooth. It is so nice.
Yep.
It does not burn like a 66% spirit. I've had overproof rums and cask strength whiskeys up in that range, and they're hot. They hurt. This is really, really nice drink. So it will take me a long time to drink this bottle if I ever actually finish it. But when I tasted it at the distillery, I was like, I need a bottle of that in my life. So
yeah.
that's what I got today.
Every time I go to Oni no Ude, which is a legendary Awamori bar here in Naha, he has a collection of those hand sanitizer bottles that clearly say not for human consumption on the side, but they taste real good, and they're all up there. And the distilleries are aware that that's what's happening, but yeah, they don't care. I mean, obviously, and they put the proper warning on there, but people are going to drink them anyway, and some of them are excellent.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I know Tada-san from Kanpai, and he just does not care. So he decided to commercialize this as a product. So he got the approval. It's it doesn't say anything about not for human consumption, and he's just now making this. This is one of the things in his portfolio, and good for him for being a little bit of an iconoclast.
If it's good, man, people will buy it, and that probably has a home either in the freezer or in some sort of cocktail, probably, if you can. I'm sure you can figure out how to use it.
Sure.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right,
we've kind of talked a lot about kind of about the people who don't follow the rules today. That was kind of the theme of today's episode.
I have a lot of respect for that. Yeah, screw the rules.
Sure.
Well, love it.
And
okay,
as you can imagine, we will be doing a podcast episode about this, about Mitosaya. That will absolutely be in your queue in the next month or so, probably. So
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
Definitely.
Alrighty. Good
All
stuff.
right, good. Yeah, so thank you everybody for joining us for the 145th episode of Shochu'sday. We will be back again next week. Same time, same place. I know that because of the time change, we shifted on you. I think it's an hour later for you now, at least if you're in the United States. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's just the nature of what do they call it? Daylight savings or losing's time, whatever it is. Whatever. Hope you have gotten your sleep rhythm back in order. From both of us here in Japan to all of you out all around the world, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai. Ta-ta.
Kanpai.